I'm a little nervous. Big House Guitars, Ben Calhoun.
Hey guys.
And Ben reached out to me because he had a cool idea of comparing some smaller amps, really small combos, to one of the big guys you just got in.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got a handful of smaller, single-ended amps from Gibson, Fender, just some really cool stuff. And when I was testing them, of course, I just diamond them.
Yeah.
And it sounded awesome, and it reminded me kind of, a lot of stuff was recorded on these little amps. And they sound like big amps, but they're usable in a small environment. So like your office, your home, bedroom, your studio, whatever. Yeah. It's more manageable.
You're right, under a microphone, they sound way bigger than they actually look, which is what we're gonna show today. So you wanna talk about the big Marshall you just got in?
Yeah, so we have a few really cool earlier Marshalls. This is a 1976 Super Lead. All original, super cool, has the cover, like everything. So this was part of the amp collection we picked up, and it's an absolute monster. It's really killer. Oddly enough, if you're listening to it recorded, there's a big argument for the smaller amp.
Yeah, really I just did a video where we shot out a 100-watt plexi versus a 50-watt plexi, and it was a lot of fun. There's not that much difference in volume, right?
3 decibels.
About 3 dB, but in the room it doesn't feel like that. No. It feels about the same. So this is a metal panel. When we talk about plexis, we're talking about Marshalls from like 66 to 68, 69.
Right in there, yeah.
When they had the plexiglass front panel. Right around 70, 71 is when they went to the metal panel and the JMP on the front.
Right.
More gain. This is when we start to get into like that heavier Marshall.
Yeah, it's like the classic, slightly more aggressive, going further and further away from its basement roots, right?
Yeah.
From Marshall. So this is when it starts really becoming what most people think of as a Marshall is metal panel forward, really.
Yeah.
Like Hendrix obviously is a different story, but when you're thinking about AC/DC and Zepp and a lot of that stuff.
So you want to talk about some of the smaller amps we're going to look at?
Absolutely.
Okay. That one's better. A little fuzzy. But the funny thing is, like, this is at conversation level.
Yep.
Like, I've got this little thing dimed, and it is...
I think that's the argument. It's such a great amp to have in your house.
Yeah.
Like in your office or wherever, because you can dime it and play it, and it's not going to, drive everybody off.
Okay, so what is this?
That's a 65 Champ. Super basic. This is kind of the student amp, right? It's Fender's smaller amp. Tons of stuff have been recorded on them. Because it's a single-ended amp, though, it doesn't have the compression that you get out of a Princeton or a Deluxe or anything else.
So what does single-ended mean?
Single-ended amps, it's just one tube. So you're hitting it, it tends to stay a little more ready.
Yeah.
So think about like making complete nonsense up here, but think about like a Class A single-ended amp, something like that, that's making 50% always to the tubes, whether you're using it or not. Whereas an AB amp might be making only 30 or less to the tubes. So there's just a moment of time that it takes to catch up, right? You don't really get as much sag out of a single-ended amp.
Yeah.
But you do out of a push-pull, like an AB amp. So these are just kind of raw, everything you need, nothing you don't, super dynamic, touch sensitive, and very, very usable almost anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, just playing that a second ago, we had it all the way on 10, dimed, and it's literally conversation level.
If you want an amp in your bedroom, or if you want an amp wherever, Champs are hard to go wrong with, or any of these smaller, 5-watt-ish amps. They're inefficient. Speakers are typically inefficient too. It's not like they're gonna rip your head off.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're great.
Chris, just whatever you do, don't show the pedal that I'm plugging into this amp right now. Okay.
You want something less tube screwing?
Don't look at that.
I can get you something different, man.
We got a Klon onto the front of this. Huh?
What pedal is that?
It's a Klon.
Yeah.
It's a Klon, and we're just going into the front just to kind of boost the front end a little bit, get a little more gain out of it. It's a special green Klon that they did for a limited. Come back up again. It's a special green Klon they did for a limited time. Yeah. And then the Skylark.
Yep.
Let's cover that.
So this is a late 50s, early 60s GA5T, so it's got the tremolo circuit on it. Monster sounding amp, again, very usable in a bedroom or in a smaller environment. Sounds fantastic, and this might have been the amp that I just demoed when I called you.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that's a big amp sound, but
Yeah, man.
small.
I have 2 Skylarks. I have been a fan of these amps for 12 years.
Yep.
Bought my first one about 12 years ago. They're amazing, man. They're still kind of sleepers. Everyone knows about the small Fenders, and the smaller Fenders tend to command a higher price tag.
Yep.
But these older Gibsons of the same era are Fender-esque, and they'll do that same thing, like really, really big sound under a microphone and a small, manageable package. Takes drive and fuzz and boost really, really well. They're killer.
There's so many cool small amps out there. Everybody made a small, cool amp. Some of them are a little more challenging, but a lot of times they have tubes that weren't really used all that often. Ampeg notoriously did that with several different tubes. But a lot of times there's conversions you can do, and a lot of these tubes that are not on the beaten path are also super cheap, and there's a surplus of them because they really didn't get used up.
Yeah.
So it's not like a 12AX7 where you try to find a new old stock one and it can cost you.
120 bucks, 130 bucks. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So different vibe altogether. Such a big amp. It just looks like a problem, doesn't it?
It's like if you put a 50 watt head on a regular 412,
Yep.
but it's 100 watt.
Yeah, everyone thought it was a small box. It's definitely not. It's absolutely not.
That's dumb. That is ridiculous. Right now, I'm just basically plugged straight into it, and that's with the volume on 10, right? So there's some gain to it, but it cleans up. Like if I lighten up.
That's that classic, super dynamic, touch responsive. That's why people like tweed amps a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're getting that kind of vibe. So there's something to it.
Yeah, man. And then if you need more gain out of it or want more gain, you can just hit it with something in front. So I've got some random overdrive here.
I've never seen one before.
Yeah, I don't know what this is, some boutique something or other.
Yeah.
But I'm actually not using really much of the gain from the pedal. I'm just using it as a boost to hit the front end harder, and will take us. That's where you get all that compression and saturation.
Yep.
And this has a 8-inch speaker in it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And these have gone up in price. Like when I bought my first one, 2012, 13, I think I paid like 375 bucks for it. And it's a 64.
Yep.
And it's needed some work. I've put another few $100s worth of work into it, but now they've gone up considerably, but they're still not vintage Fender prices.
No, they're still steals. I think this amp is talking about a $650 amp.
Yeah.
You can't buy a Blues Junior for that.
Yeah, man.
Current version.
Yeah, and for someone who's like playing and recording at home mostly, this is so much better than a Blues Junior. Yeah. It's probably not that giggable. That's the downside to these 5-watt amps, is like if you are playing with a drummer and a bass player on stage, you're going to have to rely on like a close mic situation and be brought through the house and through the monitors.
Well,
but
I was going to say though, like really I think of it as less like rehearsal worthy. When you're playing live, I mean, almost anywhere you go now they mic you up. There's very few instances where you're not mic'd.
Yeah.
So you could get away with it.
You're just not going to have the stage volume.
Not going to have the stage volume
of a bigger amp.
Which a lot of people don't want that. You know, I know like carrying stuff like this around, even back in the 90s, I had to carry a piece of plywood with me to put in front of it and mic it underneath because no one wanted to hear that. And you know, some of the other amps like that you have and I have in a club environment are not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very hard to use.
Yeah.
Even on like a half power, even using a Variac or something, they're still difficult. Stuff like this is a cakewalk.
Yeah, man.
You know, no problem at all.
So quiet.
Dude, yeah, I'm all about that.
It's quieter than the Skylark even. Mm-hmm. Like it is literally conversation level. Like if I'm talking to you, I can talk over this amp on 10 in the room.
Yeah, super inefficient speaker will do that.
And it's really fuzzy too. Like this is just the amp. Like if I dig in.
Dude, that's more my style.
Yeah, that's nice.
I like the Skylark too. This is just sweeter. It's not as aggressive.
Yeah.
Rounder sounding.
Yeah,
you
can, you can definitely get more of those like.
Respectable.
It's the same volume. It hasn't gotten any quieter. It's just cleaner. And if I want more out of it,
and that little green boutique pedal really does a good job.
yeah,
Surprising.
I wonder whoever Mr. Ibanez was.
Surprised
That's
I've
what he's
never seen
doing.
anybody using that.
That's one of my favorite pedals I think I've ever played, actually.
Pretty good, yeah.
Wow. And I wish we could like actually get across on camera how quiet it is.
It's ridiculously quiet.
Standing in front of it, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
same volume as that. It does in the room. It sounds like it looks, which is small, boxy, very quiet. But you stick the mic in front of it, and it just totally opens up. It's already at bedroom level, and it sounds amazing.
Well, and even if you're someone who owns this, this is perfect to have around the house.
Yeah, I have a few 100-watt amps, and I only play them at home when I'm specifically recording something. And I have it set up in my studio where the cabinet is 2 floors below me, mic'd up. I'm not in the same room with it. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And luckily, I don't have neighbors close by, so I can do that kind of thing. But I think for most people, even a 50-watt amp or a 40-watt amp is impractical for home use. So many examples of great records that have been recorded with a Les Paul and a Fender Champ or a Skylark or a Supro, a small 1.8, 110 combo.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of the Zeppelin stuff, those riffs were, you know, something like this. Like,
It's the tone.
you know,
It's unarguably just, it's good.
So we should compare this to that.
It's a big boy?
Yeah, it's a big
All right.
boy. I need some earplugs though. Jesus.
It sounds good though.
It sounds really good, but
It's a monster.
even with the plugs in, it's yeah. But it is clean too. Like that's the thing about it. I always thought big Marshalls were just nothing but gain all the time. That it was just a ton of gain, ton of saturation. And this metal panel is like that, but they're also really nice clean platforms. You just roll the volume back a little bit. That's a great clean sound. Wow.
Yep.
It sounds great, man. And this one, the metal panel has, like compared to my Plexi, it's definitely got more of that Kerrang thing that old Marshalls do. That like
Yep.
crashing,
It just punches you
bitey.
in the stomach.
Yeah. If you have the means to be able to use that consistently, like
Well, it's like the smaller amps, you can ring them out to their absolute limits, like a small car, you know, like a little Miata or something. You can absolutely have a blast and run it to its limits, and it's cool. Like
Yeah.
you can do that. That's more like a really high-end supercar or something. It's gonna be hard to get it to its limits in any kind of normal situation.
Yeah.
But it's still really freaking fun.
yeah, and it feels a little dangerous and a little scary.
Definitely.
The car analogy is good. It's like you can ring that out and still be under the speed limit and having a ton of fun.
Having a blast.
This is like going to jail.
You're going to jail.
Yeah.
Never to drive again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But having a blast doing it.
It's so much fun.